Hello everyone and welcome back to The Second Messiah. On the last episode of The Second Messiah, we saw a Garamantian attack against Syracuse coming to face our feverish garrison with a decent army. They were able to break through our outer defences, however they couldn't get into the middle of the city where some pikemen held off their general and infantry, and we ended up routing the whole force. Vitellicus was resettling further down the coast of Africa whilst trying to drive away Garamantian survivors. Saphrax moved out from Hadrumetum to fight some rebels. Various rebels all across the board were fought last time. Edeka finished off some of the Garamantians' last forces, meaning they're really out of the fight at this stage. Saphrax died of natural causes though, a tragic loss, which meant he had to be replaced with some inferior officer. Good news though is that we managed to take Mechanides off the Garamantians who'd already spent the money colonising it, so that was a nice way to expand our population here. Then, strangely, Theudas, Saphrax's deputy, also died of natural causes at a much younger age, back over in Italia. Edeka started a campaign west against the Gaetulians, hoping to attack their capital to stop their marauding army further east. And we also saw the Visigoths reinforcing Caralis, where we're about to be attacked by some Roman rebels. Now let's continue. Abandon our dream. You say it as if there was some event about to occur that would make our dream even possible. We have to face the facts. We already tried to make a land of our own, and we have failed. It is a miracle that we have survived this long. No, it's not a miracle. It's because of our alliance to Vitellicus. His collection of allies made our lives easy. Yet we still have nothing to show for all our loss of life, only tiny scraps of the world that pale in comparison to what our cousins have achieved. The arguments as to whether Vitellicus is mad, a warmongerer, addicted to his power, or in fact is the son of God, have consumed and veiled the true matter of debate. Should we side with those who are building a strong new world? Or do we remain in our own crumbling castles, patching up the holes and telling ourselves everything is okay until the walls finally collapse and crush us all? Well, I think you've all guessed my opinion on the matter then. Really, all I want to hear from you is how we're going to make this happen. We're going to aid Vitellicus, not in his crazy quest, but in his mission to make a world the Goths can be proud to rule. If it turns out that his prophecy is true after all, then that's all the better. No use betting against him, don't you say? Welcome back to The Second Messiah. I'm currently trying to get Amalric here to hinder this Gaetulian army outside Garama so that I can stick it in position and attack it, but he himself is being constantly hindered by a nearby agent, so hasn't had any success. Edeka though is able to find success. He pushes on Dimity, the Gaetulian capital, which has nothing defending it. So although he took massive attrition walking through the desert to get to this point, losing a pretty decent portion of his army as you can see on the left there, he's able to take it without resistance, and that means the Gaetulians have nothing left in terms of territory, so defeating that final army will wipe them out as a faction. I'm going to repair up the town and now start looking north towards Caesarea, where we can see the Mauryan kingdom is currently under siege from the Western Roman Separatists. I'm not at war with either of those factions, but it'll be interesting to see what happens as a result of that siege, because it will probably determine my next move. Moving on, we get an offer of peace from Aaron, one of the random eastern factions that I believe came into the war against us as a result of our war against the Sassanids. I'll accept their offer, especially because it came with a gift of gold, which is always appreciated. The Gaetulian army moves and suddenly lays siege to Garama after waiting for so long. It's not able to attack because the garrison is quite large, so it just keeps the siege going for now, and the Garamantian fleet that's been pestering me in the Mediterranean moves south towards my African colonies, dangerous because it could easily take them since they're undefended. Then suddenly the rebels on Caralis make the attack I was expecting. The balance bar is really far in our favour, probably because the Visigothic army is reinforcing our small garrison inside. I felt like testing out the city's defences and seeing how the enemy's siege weapons came into play, so I decided to fight this one myself. I also thought the balance bar was probably being unfair to the enemy, so I'm going to give them a chance, and you can see once the battle starts, it's actually even before the Visigoths come onto the field. Anyway, to begin with, the enemy have formed up to just use their long-range siege weapons. They've got scorpions at the front of their formation who'll bombard my infantry on the walls with bolts so that they're not sufficiently accurate to really do damage, especially because my men are behind cover. More dangerous is the onagers, which you can see immediately began bombarding the wall beside the gate. On the gate itself, I have one bastion onager, which is going to be able to fire back. It doesn't have enough range to hit the enemy's onagers, but it does have the ability to hit their tightly packed infantry formations with flaming shot as well. And because the enemy, conveniently for me, happen to be standing on flammable ground, the hits do massive damage. Here you can see one unit of Palatina guards completely torn apart by a direct hit from the onagers. Very powerful stuff. But soon enough, the enemy's onager bombardment destroys part of the wall, meaning the enemy won't have to bother going through the hassle of destroying my gates, and seeing this, they immediately commit all of their forces to the attack. Perhaps they had more ammunition left and could have opened up another breach, but they aren't going to attempt to do it. They're going to go right in. So their forces will now advance. I've got a few troops on the wall ready to defend, not all that many because I have others committed to a central position further back just in case they break through the outer defences. As they advance, my onager continues to hit them, and you can see the deadly flames engulfing large parts of their army here, getting tons of kills, amazing shots from the bastion onager. As they get closer, I've got archery towers beside the gate who are going to bombard them with bolts, and we also have some Roman archers on the wall, so we're going to use fire arrows against the enemy. Overall, plenty of fiery projectiles going the enemy's way, but of course they're going to break through the wall and make it to the walls. I decided to make a landing on the flank of the enemy's army using these small teams on the boats. Nothing too powerful. I hoped I'd be able to just sneak around the back of the enemy's army and take out the onagers. But actually, for once, the AI decided to actually pull off troops from the attack to go and specifically kill these men before they could advance, which I was actually surprised by, even though it's pretty obvious they could have done it. I've just never seen them bother to actually do this. So unfortunately for me, those heavy cavalry are going to come right in and completely annihilate these vulnerable teams of longbowmen. I think I've got 2 of bow and 1 sword unit, neither of which are going to be useful at fighting against the enemy's heavy cavalry. We'll kill a decent number of them, especially because my fire arrows there at point blank range are going to kill a few. Overall though, the landing team is screwed. The main bulk of the enemy's army is pushed through the breach, and I'm now trying to hold it out of the city with a few spearmen. I've got a unit of Germanic spears and a unit of Comitatensis spears, more Roman forces, holding off the enemy, and as they're stuck in position, my tower is going to really deplete their numbers. The Visigoths, having had to run from the south part of the map, have come through the city and are now just starting to arrive at the actual battle, but by this point the enemy's numbers have been heavily depleted by the prolonged combat in front of the tower, so actually they're not really going to arrive at a point that's going to be particularly decisive. They've still got a lot of forces outside the town as well. Here crossbowmen are trying to take out my archers on the wall, but the fact that I'm in cover gives me a distinct advantage against them. The enemy's cavalry, coming back from having finished off my landing forces, are going to just pile into this engagement as well, which doesn't go well since it's mostly just spears. The Visigoths' main infantry battalions finally arrive at the breach too late. The enemy forces are already falling back at this stage. The few who aren't routing are about to, and are fighting against overwhelming odds. So it looks like the Gothic forces were able to win this one on their own, although a lot of the Gothic forces were actually Roman forces from the garrison of the city, and the Roman rebel army has been sent back. Heavy casualties on both sides, unfortunately, but it's not going to make a huge deal because this army will not have to fight again. A decisive victory for the Gothic forces defending Caralis. The rebel army got away with a lot of its troops, so it's not going to be defeated, but pretty soon we're going to be able to chase them down and finish them once I've recruited a few more men in the area. So we're safe for now. Although the good King Theodoric will say he has come to your aid, it isn't strictly the case. Granted, his men were encamped nearby the city as a deterrent, but the rebels calculated correctly that they could begin their attack and even breach our walls before the Visigoths could mobilize. Victory was found not through their aid, but through the bravery of our own men, and in fact those of the loyal Roman forces who fought at our side. The glory was ours, and ours alone, as was the loss of life. I implore you, my king, to not let any smooth-tongued man of Theodoric convince you otherwise. On the results screen, we can see the enemy's army is badly bloodied. On our side, taking half as many losses, but a lot of the garrison taking good casualties there, and the naval garrison being pretty much wiped out as a result of that cavalry attack from the enemy. Overall, though, still a safe situation to leave. We'll take out the rest of those rebels later on. We get news of a noble birth, and it's Edgica, finally a legitimate child from Edgica. He's got 2 bastards already, I believe, might even be bastard daughters, so good to have a new member to the royal family. Now, to deal with this Gaetulian siege at Garima, it looks like Guilomir is going to have to march back through some attrition zones in order to reach the enemy's army. His army is definitely superior to them, and they seem to know this. They rush off into the desert. The siege is immediately lifted. Annoying though, because the siege will have damaged all the buildings inside the town, and it costs a decent amount of money to get those buildings back up into working condition, and if I don't, they're going to have reduced capacity and not work as well, and increase the chance of disease. So I sort of want to do it, especially since I have quite a lot of money at the moment, but still quite annoying. The next matter to attend to is the rebel army near Leptis Magna, which is starting to get a bit large, so we're going to finish them off using Vitericus. An easy battle, yet again the rebels somehow acquiring a decent amount of siege equipment out there in the desert, so they could have made a decent attack against Leptis Magna if they had more men. Unfortunately, wiped out. So there's another rebellion put down. We've had a lot of rebellions in Africa, but it's getting to the point now when the rebellions are starting to stop happening. We finally killed all of the discontents effectively in these battles. Vitericus is going to go and sit in one of the undefended coastal colonies just in case the Garamantians get up to no good and attack it. There are more rebels to deal with in Caralis, just the survivors of the battle from the siege of the city itself, so the garrison inside can just move out and destroy them. That should be easy enough. Since the garrison had a good number of mercenaries in it, killing these guys means the situation has now stabilised, so those mercenaries can be gotten rid of, meaning get a bit of money or extra income over the next turns as a result of finishing the rebels off. But I am actually going to keep around all of the regular Germanic spearmen that I hired into this army, just in case another rebellion happens, and I think it might, considering that other factions control all the other regions in this province, so it's a little bit hard to manage the public order, so there's a decent chance of another rebellion happening, and maybe the Visigoths will even still be around for that. So far, they haven't shown any signs of wandering off. Now, with the children of Uim, who formerly would have been commanded by Saphrax, I decided I wanted to give them a superior commander to the random guy currently leading them, so that one of my best armies will have one of my best commanders. And for this, I'm going to bring in Vidimir, who is actually Vitericus' son and the heir to him as king, so he is the true prince of the Visigothic kingdom and the son of God. Quite a position. Moving on, the Gaetulians besiege Garima again, and the Garamantian fleet moves away from our colonies. I'm not sure what it was doing, but it seems the threat posed by them is gone. That Mazoon fleet, which I've mentioned loads of times, is still wandering around here in the Mediterranean, but hasn't committed to an attack. At this point, I'm assuming it's never going to. Now, conveniently for me, the Western Roman Separatists move out on ships to destroy the Garamantian fleet that was marauding about. So that was very nice of them, and I believe as a result of that, the Garamantians as a faction have been completely wiped out. There's the confirmation there. So as more rebellions seem to be starting, we get a new protege to look at in our faction politics, but we'll look at that in a second. First, the Gaetulians besieging Garima are obviously just going to move away as I attack them. Their army is massively inferior to the army inside, led by Guilomir. I moved out to see if they would stand and fight a battle, and they did, so this is finally a chance to wipe out this army. Balance bar very far in our favour, so I'll just auto-resolve the enemy out of existence. Don't really know what they were trying to do, attacking this heavily fortified and garrisoned position when they could have just gone and raided one of the many small towns without much of a garrison in it if they really wanted to take some of my territory. But I guess there was just something about Garima that drew them into battle, and unfortunately they've been killed as a result of those poor decisions. Guilomir took some not completely inconsequential losses during that battle and took a bit of attrition as well, but he'll soon have those men back. Amalric here can finally stop being harassed by enemy agents now, which is good, so he's going to move off to actually do some spying against the Mauryans to our west. Now here's that Roman protege. This is the same event that gave me Eutharic in the past, so again I'm going to bring this guy into court, because I'm pretty sure it's just going to give me a decent possible general to hire, which is always useful. Now over in the east, I'm sort of worried that we've left everything totally undefended, so Roderick is moving back to come and garrison the area in general and make sure no one can sneak into all of our rich but undefended territories here. And since those territories are now very stable and very Aryan, we're going to be able to move over our priests to start converting and stabilizing the new regions, which we definitely need because, as you can see there, rebellions are still happening. Now we get an event saying that the protege has become, curiously, an agent recruited, but it says he's a general, so I'm not sure if the general counts as an agent from that perspective. Looking down my list, I couldn't tell who it was, because as far as I remembered, all of the ones there were already available, these two candidates. So I'm not sure if he's just not on the list because I've got too many nobles already being used already or something, or perhaps I need to hire a general to make him appear. I don't know. Who knows who that guy was, but I don't need any more officers right now, so it's not a huge deal. Over in Dimidi, that's where the rebellion's happening. Edgar can just face off against them there, and once they get a bit bigger, take them out. So we'll use that to help improve public order and just let it continue. Now, something I can do to improve public order permanently is stop using edicts in Eastern Africa, where I'm spreading Arian Christianity, and start bringing it over to the West, since the East is pretty stable now, and we'll start making the West see our point of view using that edict. When the Messiah needs someone to go without food or shelter for days, and force men to do the same but without water, he looks to me. And this is on top of the paperwork that still manages to find me in the most inhospitable deserts of the world. A miracle from the Messiah indeed. Either I've grown too nostalgic of Edgar's ranting, or I have reached the limit of my tolerance for brother's self-centeredness. He must be very happy with this arrangement, where I deal with the challenges of rulership while he gets the rewards. Of course, I am the better choice for this kind of work, but still, I haven't seen my wife for years. I hope Vitrid still knows I am alive. Moving on, the Morians to my west come to me with an offer of defensive alliance, asking for a tiny sum of money in exchange. Nothing really. Ordinarily would be quite a good offer considering they own a lot of territory right next to me, but of course they are a target. So instead of allying with them, we're going to spy on them, a Malric heading right into their territory. Nothing to see so far because I think it's mostly just empty space, only a couple of settlements, and interestingly, under attack it seems from the Western Roman Empire raiding outside their settlement there. And of course the Separatists are attacking them as well, so it seems they've got trouble with the Romans. We're going to let the Separatists continue doing that and see what happens effectively. Now over in the east, where Roderick is garrisoning Alexandria, there's this mysterious fleet, a hostile fleet. I think it's Abasgia is the name of the faction it belongs to, one of the Sassanid vassals that could invade our territory here, so Roderick's going to hang around. He's got a pretty good army though, so if they did make an attack at Alexandria, we'd be fine. You can see there during the entire sequence, they just moved a tiny bit there, suffering from attrition out to sea. I don't know what they're trying to do, but they're failing, whatever it is. Now back over in Dimidi, Edgar is going to move out to take out the rebels who have grown to be decently strong. He has to take a bit of attrition to catch them actually, but not a big deal. Massive advantage over them as usual, so we'll just take those guys out. Acceptable losses, although somehow we lost a whole regiment of Comitatensis spears. I think Edgar might have been a little bit too reckless with those Roman forces, but we won nevertheless, and now we have to basically plan what we're going to do, because to make a new move we have to either attack the Morians, the Western Roman Separatists, the Separatists seeming like a better target considering they own Carthage and could perhaps soon own Caesarea. I'm going to sit back and wait to see the result of that battle, and of course we can always just attack the one who wins while they're weak. That hostile fleet sort of darts towards the rebel territories near Alexandria, not coming towards the city itself, so we're going to have to keep an eye on them. But suddenly we get some really interesting news. It seems that the Aryan population in our nation really wants us to go to war with the Western Roman Separatists, I think because they are Latin Christians and they don't want those heathens existing on the same continent as us. So with this support from the people, this makes it extra easy for me to justify declaring war, especially because I'll get a massive bonus to public order if I do it. You can see they still haven't taken Caesarea there, so we're going to have to basically just keep waiting. I don't want to attack there right away, but in Carthage, their only settlement, they have pretty much no defences. And we of course have Widimir with the children of Rheims nearby, so we're in a real good position to start this war. I was going to just outright declare it, but then I realised that since the Morians are having some trouble with the Western Roman Separatists, it's likely that they would pay me some money in order to join the war, so I might as well do that. I cheekily asked if they would be my tributary state, but of course they wouldn't. Withdrew that offer and came in asking for some money. They were willing to give me a decent sum of money for it, so I'll take that, better than nothing, and now I'm going to be able to reap much raw rewards from this war by just going and taking Carthage. It's just got one officer inside it, so we can move up. Widimir here has an onager in his force, so he can auto-resolve an assault on the city, which has almost no strength on the balance bar, so I'll do just that. Easy peasy, the great city of Carthage is suddenly ours. We now control most of the great cities of the world. We're getting pretty powerful here. And the Western Roman Separatists, I think, are now going to have to become a horde because that was their last settlement. It also handily is part of the same province as Hadrumetum, which we've already spent a lot of time pacifying, so there's not much of a problem with public order or religion here as soon as we take it, so we're going to be able to get Carthage up and running pretty soon. Going to repair all the damage from the siege though, because it's going to be useful, except for the auditorium, because it spreads Roman paganism. Now, as for the actual Western Roman Separatist army doing the siege over there at Caesarea, I could attack it right now with Edgecare and would be reinforced by the Mauryans, most likely, making it easy, but I want to allow that siege to continue on the off chance that they actually do succeed in taking the city, because then I have a reason to go and take the city for myself, so it would be a good way to start taking territory from the Mauryans without starting the war before I'm totally ready. In order to get ready, I'm going to move Vithericus up the road, going towards that desolate settlement there. I'll probably go and recolonize it once I get there. I'll build up some money and do that so that we can have that complete area under our control. As for Guilemir, I wasn't sure whether he needed to go west as well to help in this war, and whether he would need to hang around in Central Africa here just in case there was more rebellions or something, but because it looked like public order was improving everywhere, and I'm not expecting a naval invasion anytime soon, I decided I would move him up. He's going to basically follow behind Vithericus and support him in his attack in any way that is required. Now moving on, an interesting reunion with the Huns occurs. The Huns burst into northern Italy, defeat an Illyrian army and then destroy one of their towns. A disturbing development that suddenly means we're in great danger back in Italia. I do have half a stack hanging around, but if there are more Huns to come, things could get dangerous. But before we have any time to think about that, we get this sudden, almost random attack from one of the Sassanids' vassals who come from the sea right at the bottom right hand corner of the map and attack Adulis, which of course has nothing in it but its garrison. According to the balance bar, we have a decent chance of winning. My own assessment's a little bit more pessimistic, but it's still definitely worth fighting. The enemy's artillery ship will be a problem because it can just bombard our garrison units from the shore before they land, so we're going to have to be careful how we play this and try and take out the enemy's king if we can, since we have the opportunity. So this is the new world they're building. Looks the same as the old one to me. Something tells me they aren't quite as immortal as they think. Let's see. Sink their ships and capture the ports. If the old maps of Axum are anything to go by, there is a road from the docks right to the gates of their little nest, the place people are calling New Eden. Sounds rich. We shall clear a path and invite all those who feel like becoming wealthy to make New Eden their own personal bank. And from there, what is to stop us from reaching the source of the Nile or the mouth of heaven? Our spies say nothing, and so I say, let us go now to claim not just riches, but the path to the heart of the divine. The enemy begin their attack, coming through a sandstorm to impede visibility, but it's still pretty obvious what's happening. They've got their ships split up into two groups, the main group coming in from the north led by their king, and then two heavy assault ships who have positioned themselves right next to the town. I positioned my own ships next to them. My hope was that I'd be able to defeat these ships before they landed using my ships, and then perhaps just land any survivors from my crew. But comparing the stats of the crew, it appeared the enemy's marines were much more powerful, so instead I immediately draw the enemy backwards towards this tower. My next hope was that the tower would be able to use its flaming bolts to set fire to these ships, but the amount of fire damage it was doing was minimal, and the fire arrows being loosed by my archers wasn't doing all that much either. So that hope quickly went out the window. The enemy's fast ships were well able to board with mine before I could escape. So now, my lighter troops have to fight with the enemy's heavy infantry boarding the ships, and this isn't going to go all that well, clearly. My men do have javelins, who should be able to kill some of the enemy here. They throw a volley, but unfortunately most of them just get stuck in the hull. You have to throw a javelin pretty damn hard to stick it through a ship's hull, so that's impressive, but it's not very helpful to my continuation of the battle. And while they're stuck fighting this boarding action, the enemy's other ships are slowly coming in. Of course, their artillery ship at the back is going to do devastating damage if it starts firing. All of my infantry on the town are currently hidden from the enemy, so the artillery isn't a problem right now. They're going to be focusing on my ships, not even knowing that I have troops inside the town. Now, miraculously, I managed to actually rout one of the enemy's boarding ships. I think another volley of javelins killed a good number of them, and they routed with a good number of their men still intact. So, one of the ships was actually defeated. So my plan kind of worked, although it really shouldn't have. I think it must have been a fluke here. I've lost a ship of my own in the meantime, so now it's my general ship fighting with the remaining enemy ship. A battle the enemy will easily win, and the tower there, raining bolts in, isn't helping, nor are those fire arrows. The archers on my ship were basically useless because they couldn't get the fire damage up very high, and the fire damage was constantly declining on their ships as the enemy doused the flames. So now coming in, the rest of the enemy's navy, they've got slingers leading the attack here who'll be able to bombard the melee with stones. There's a decent chance they'll kill some of their own troops here, so that's some consolation, but of course we're not going to hope to win this engagement. Also, their artillery ship is now in range, and it's raining shots down onto this ship as the enemy board it. Again, a chance the enemy might hit their own troops is the best we can hope for here. My guys rout pretty quickly. Here the enemy's king coming in with this massive ship filled with very heavy infantry marines, so I pretty much don't have any way of killing at this point, so there's nothing we can do about it. So my navy is pretty much out for the count now. I've still got my archery ship, which is raining arrows down but not doing anything, and the enemy's ships are going to be able to just chase it down and take it out quite easily. You can see I'm trying to turn it around. I want to escape from here and allow my archery tower to keep firing in the somewhat vain hope that it might kill some of the enemy's crew. Plus, we're wasting the enemy's artillery ship's ammunition by making them fire at this archery ship, which right now is a very low value unit for us. It's not going to do anything in the battle, but we do want to stop these shots being fired at my infantry on shore once the enemy land. So it's useful for me to just make them waste their shots. And of course, try and kill as many as I can. It's pretty inevitable that this archer crew is going to be killed, especially when these very heavy infantry start swarming onto the ship. So the naval battle has been a resounding failure. The balance bar remains heavily in the enemy's favour, and now we're going to basically just hope the enemy don't make a particularly intelligent attack on the town, because there's nothing my archers can do at this point, and the towers have not proved useful at all. So as long as this ship's still alive, we're still drawing artillery fire from the enemy's ship, which is very useful. I think the enemy's ship lost about half of its ammunition by this point, so that's a brilliant move, a brilliant use of these ships considering they were going to die anyway. The enemy managed to set this ship on fire while fighting at it somehow, so that ship is completely gone. It's all over on the naval front. So now we have to just watch the enemy and see what they do. If they discover my units, the artillery will definitely wipe them out, and they're going to have to land and find them eventually, so this could be a very dangerous one, but we'll see what happens next time. So that's all for now. We'll finish that fight and see a few more unwanted surprises next time on the Second Messiah.